If you don't know what car you need to choose for the next season in your community race, watch this video. I will explain all the strong and weak points of the most popular cars in ACC and some tips and some value. I asked my community as well. They had also opinions about different cars. Special shout out to them for providing lists and additional information, because I cannot come up with everything myself. Also, stick to the end, because I have a philosophy about the car choices, which seasons and all that stuff. So let's get into the first one. Porsche 992. This car will accelerate out of corners like you wouldn't believe. Every time you're coming out of the corner, you're lining up perfect for the exit. You hit throttle and you just disappear from your opponents behind you, which makes it very good on acceleration in that initial moment when you're coming out of mid or slow speed corners. Brake performance is really good. If you have a low brake bias setting, you can hit those brakes really hard and you can be like outperforming the competition in the braking zone. And that's the next thing. If you can get away with its like borderline behavior sometimes, you can really thrive on a circuit where there's a lot of bends and corners and whatever, and that also makes it super fun to drive. Now, the weaknesses of this car is it's gonna suffer top speed and it's gonna be not so competitive on some tracks. So let's say on Imola you will have that long straight. This is gonna hurt you. Let's say you have Spa, camel straight. This is gonna hurt you. If you drive this on Monza, you need to take the wing off, and then it's like kind of awkward to balance it out again with your setup. Also, you have the tank in front, so when you have longer stints, you're gonna suffer from tire wear and the balance of the car changes through the stint, making it an overall rating of 3 out of 5 stars, which is super subjective, and I'm gonna name these stars for the different cars. Let's go to the next one, which is the McLaren 720S Evo. This car is chosen by a lot of drivers. There is almost no lobby where I go into where I don't see a McLaren, which very logical, because the strong points of this car is it's competitive on almost every track. It's good on tires. It has a wide windshield, so you have like a proper view. There's not like a wiper in the way or like a high dashboard, which makes the contact on the road really good. It's pretty decent on curbs, acceleration and top speed. It doesn't suffer, so it's a very all-round car. Now, the downside of the McLaren is it is strange in the first gear, so 9 out of 10 times you want to avoid the first gear. It can be somewhat oversteery on entry or on exit. It sometimes feels to me that it's loose on the back somehow. I actually really struggle with this car if I really want to push it. Also, the braking performance isn't all that good, so if you normally like on your limit with braking, in the McLaren you need to do that a little bit more earlier, making it an overall rating of almost 5 stars because it's so competitive everywhere. If you can control this and you have a nice setup for this car, you can basically win every race. The Ferrari 296. Strong points would be it is easy to drive. It is very consistent on a lot of tracks. It's good on tire wear and it's good on engine braking. You can really shift down the gears and rev that engine up and use these stability of high RPM when you're hitting the brakes and shifting downwards. Now, the disadvantages and the weak points of this car, especially in the latest update, it quite got like a nerve on acceleration. So from out of slow corners, this actually will not accelerate that fast. Like compared to a Porsche, it's very hard to overtake a Porsche in a Ferrari. Also, what is going to be really like a pain when you're driving the 296 is the curbs and sausage curbs. I mean, this car will just murder you. I've seen so many like others, like streamers or racers, when the curb's coming, oh, hold your breath. And I also find it quite difficult to be super competitive in this car. So when I really want to push it, same as the McLaren, I am struggling somewhat. But it does get like a 4.5 star rating because it's so much picked by other racers in the communities, making it like have this rating. The Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo 2. Such a mouthful. Let's just call this the Lambo. I've driven this quite a couple of laps the last few days and I am super excited, and I'm probably gonna drive this at some point. I didn't drove it a whole lot, but I will. And it's a very stable ride. It is competitive on most tracks. It is very easy to set up, and I believe it can be super quick on one lap. And that's also a little bit of the downside. It has a low top speed. Probably a lot of times you want to run a bit more wing and you take some off just to get a little bit faster on the straights, but it's low top speed basically. And it can be somewhat oversteery in slow corners when you're coming out of corners. So yeah, on throttle you need to be careful. Making it 4 stars overall. BMW M4 GT3. I would say super beginner friendly. Great on curbs, great acceleration, easy to set up, and competitive on most tracks. A super consistent ride. Why would you ever change your car? The weakness of this car is the engine braking. Like compared to a Ferrari, when you engine brake, sometimes it doesn't downshift and it can really hurt a little bit in your braking performance. Because it's so easy to set up, there's like, in my opinion, it's like the setups always go a certain direction. You really want to run this a whole lot of wing a lot of times, and making the setup variety a little bit like making it not have a lot of setup variety. Let's say compared to a Ferrari or a McLaren, you can do very low wing a lot of times to make that top speed, but this car you probably want to run max wing a lot of times. And that makes it a little bit slow on the like end top speed when you're running high wing. Making it overall 4.5 star rating because it's so competitive everywhere. The Audi R8 LMS GT3 Evo 2. Another mouthful. Oh my god. This car you can always run on max wing, which makes it like the fastest car with max wing on the straight. What's also a very positive point, learn you to adapt to a new unique driving style. You are an absolute pro if you're competitive in this car. That doesn't sound very positive, does it? Because that's the most positive I can be about the Audi, because it's very hard to be competitive in. It will drive, but it has weird characteristics. It will steer into the corner too fast, then it starts to understeer when you're coming out of the corner, makes you force this car behavior in a really weird way. So the weaknesses is that it's difficult to drive. And what also is a weakness, that the LFM BOP absolutely nerfed this car, which makes it even way harder to be competitive in. And when I experienced with this car, when you're driving this a longer stint, it gets more nervous on the back. I have seen so many Audis go off in the end of the stint because they could not control their car anymore. Making it 2-star rating. Now I really like the sound and how this car looks, but in terms of like using this for a whole season to be competitive in, not so much. The Honda NSX GT3 Evo. These car names, they are impossible for me. I'm looking at these. Okay, move on. This car is the fastest accelerating car in the game currently. Again, when you choose this car, you are going to learn an unique way of driving. What is also maybe a little bit of a positive, not a lot of people driving this car, so you will be probably the only one. It also has very good traction control. The weakness of this car is it has a very low top speed when you're running the max wing setting, and it is really hard to drive, especially when the speed goes up. When you're into faster corners, you almost don't have to use a steering wheel to go off. Let's say Eau Rouge is an absolute pain in this car, making it 2.5 star overall. Aston Martin V8 Vantage. Super beginner friendly, competitive on the most tracks, great on tires, good acceleration, good top speeds, easy to set up, and for me, and I think a lot of people would agree, it's very easy to be competitive in this car. Also a very underrated car in my opinion. Not a lot of people are choosing it, and now I'm also in a community, almost no one chooses the Aston Martin, and I can be dominant in this league. It's absolutely amazing. And what absolute strength of the Aston Martin, it's so easy to be super consistent. The weakness of this car is its first gear. It's way too long, and when you're coming out of a slow corner, this car will just not go out of the corner. And also the race starts, if you don't hit the race start perfectly, you'll always lose a position or two when you're starting with this car. It also has quite a understeering nature, so if you have a lot of downforce corners, you really need to use trail brake to rotate it into corners. Some people would say like this is a boring ride, making it 4 stars overall. Mercedes-AMG GT3. This is the best car for curbs. If you have curbs, this car will just eat them and no issues. If you're chasing a Ferrari down, let's say, you'll have a massive advantage. Very good on acceleration. For like when you're coming out of corners, you're hitting the throttle again. It's very hard for the opposition to overtake you in the acceleration phase. When we have higher speeds, it actually has really good rotation. It has proper downforce. Now the weakness of this car, it is quite hard to set up. A lot of different tracks, like little tweaks, can change the car massively, and it's sometimes hard to figure out which settings you need to have for different tracks. So another big disadvantage of this car is you wanna run it max wing pretty much all the time. And I'm also talking Monza, I'm also talking Paul Ricard, and maybe also the Nordschleife. If you take off wing of this car, it will just go so slow. So max wing we need. And if you have like a track with a lot of corners, then this is pretty quick, making it 2.5 stars overall. Now we still have a few cars. We have the Bentley, maybe the Lexus, maybe the 991, I'm not sure. And we also need to maybe speak about the Nissan and the 488, because some of our community also drive this 488 and some of them drive the Nissan. Just a quick story, this Bentley is like an Aston Martin, but it's on the wrong side. I did not really drive this a whole lot, but this is also super easy beginner car. It's very I believe it's very competitive with the LFM BOP, and you can really be consistent in this car. Same as for the Datsun, this car can be I believe the acceleration and the responsiveness of this car, it's way more playful than, let's say, an Aston Martin. I'm also considering to, some people call this the Godzilla. I really feel it's very nimble and agile in the corner. And it has a massive acceleration, so this is also really great car. Now this car is absolutely very hard to drive. There's a lot of downsides of this, so this is also like the Honda or like the Audi. You compare this car a little bit with those cars, but I really like the view what you have in VR, but also the view you have. The Lexus, bruh, my all-time favorite car, but it lacks competitiveness, so I'm not really driving it. Obviously, I recorded that full video, and then a day later the Mustang came free car to ACC, so I'm also driven this quite a few laps already, and I'm gonna speak about the Ford as well. And I'm pretty freaking sure this is really fast on the straights. It isn't really super hard to drive, in my opinion. Setup wise, you can take an Aston Martin approach to this, and that also counts for the traction control too. That one I put on the max, and then I'm really feeling comfortable in this car, and it also feels like it's on the braking, it's also really good. So braking will be really good, and top speed will be really good, but it is the downside of this car. It's a little bit understeery in the slow corner. So if you're in a slow corner, it actually will not turn, and it doesn't feel really agile. And hopefully they're gonna maybe nerf this a little bit, because it really feels like I just made a few setups like really quick, and I could hit like 217s, like low 217s on Spa. That's already super close to my personal record. So to already give this some star rating, I'm actually not sure. We're gonna have to see how this car is being used, and only time will tell. Probably more than 3 stars. Now, great Arnoud, you told everything about these cars. What is something, and that's always going to change, is the LFM BOP, and a lot of other communities are using the same BOP, so you have always this ballast to consider in a way that cars are fast or whatever. So this gives you a good idea. Like the Audi on Imola got like 13 kilos, the Bentley got minus 19, the Honda NSX got minus 23. So all these variants you're gonna have, and there's like, they are doing their absolute best to balance it out. So the competitiveness doesn't really matter as much in my opinion, but you want to, like, let's say you're doing a season, so we go to LFM season, and this is LFM, yeah, you could do this on like different. So let's say you're focusing on these kinds of GT3 series, you go to schedule. What I would do, and what I'm doing mostly, is just I'm running this whole season with one particular car. So you're gonna learn setups, you're gonna build them, or maybe you can buy them. You could also use the link down below. Yeah, Coach Dave Academy, that would really help me out if you use that link. They have setups for every car track combination, which is like for $10 a month. It's absolutely a no-brainer. But, or you use my preset, also link down below. Use that same car, use it everywhere, and see, like, maybe you're gonna suffer a little bit on Silverstone, maybe you're gonna thrive on Spielberg, but at the end of the season you will have like a bunch of knowledge of this car. And then what I also recommend is then to pivot the season what comes after, use a different car and stick with that, and then you're gonna really learn your car. And I think in the long run you're gonna be quicker as a result as well, instead of only sticking with the same car.